Here it is, just in behind the petrol station here. This is where the Krawarree is. The Krawarree is what they used to call a sea ambulance, and they were used to pick up wounded soldiers off the beaches up around the islands. It's built of a lovely timber called Huon Pine, only available in Tasmania, so these boats were built in Tasmania. This is one of 5 and the last remaining one.
It's a unique boat in that it's a medical boat. A shallow draft was able to get very close to shore, and then they'd have patients and engine personnel brought on board, treated slightly as much as possible, and then taken out off to a larger hospital ship.
I know it's made of Huon Pine, which is a very special endangered species that we harvested like there was no tomorrow in southwest Tasmania.
The Huon Pine grows incredibly slowly at only 1 millimetre of girth per year. It can live up to 2,500 years and only begins to reproduce at the age of 600 to 800. The tree's massive size and pliability and resistance to shipworm made the Huon Pine prized timber for the shipbuilders of yesteryear.
As we can see here, these timber planks run diagonally, and there's another layer underneath will run the opposite way, so this method is called double diagonal planking, and we can see a bit of wear and tear on the outside, but with a bit of a sanding back and sealing, that'll come up beautifully, that timber. We're very fortunate the timber itself is impervious to white ants and wood rot, so that's why it survived really. So we're very lucky to have the old girl, the Krawarree.
I know that it holds a lot of stories to a lot of people. Because a lot of those people have now gone, I'm sure they have children, we're seeking out people that can tell their story that has something to do with the harvesting of the Huon Pine, the building of the vessel, and people that actually were commissioned to work on this ambulance.
The A.H. Krawarree was one of 5 boats built by E.H. Jack. It was made to be used during World War II as an army hospital ship, but the war ended before its arrival. It served in Papua New Guinea to evacuate post-war casualties to awaiting hospital ships. The Krawarree was able to carry 33 stretchers, an emergency operating table below deck, 2 nurses, a doctor, and 12 crew. This ship is the only one left of the 5 that were built.
I've done a lot of community things. This is one way out of my comfort zone, but I could see the value of it. I know that there were 5 commissioned, there were 4 built, and there were 3 sunk, and there was 1 left. So we formed a group called the Krawarree Project Limited with the aim of restoring this vessel. And so I met then Bob. Bob's a war veteran. He's served in Vietnam and has extensive knowledge of wooden boats, timber boats, especially this boat. He's followed its journey from where it's been for the last 20 years odd.
I was at the Sanctuary Cove boat show one day, and a friend of mine said there's a lovely old timber boat out the back there. It looks like one of our old boats. And he said, would you mind having a look at it and see if you can check it out?
So it was up on the Gold Coast, and it was sort of melting back into the bush up there, and it was fairly neglected. It was starting to have things taken off it. All of its precious things were taken, like its drive shaft and anything made of brass.
It was then under the control of some Navy people who were calling it the Karanda, and the Karanda was one of the 5 vessels built during the war. Anyway, I was fortunate that an old chap that used to drive these boats in the Second World War was still alive, and he was able to put us on the right track, and we found out this was called the Krawarree, and yeah, so it went from there, and the Navy stepped aside and the Army stepped in, and the Gold Coast Council were promising a lot of money to do it up, but it never eventuated. And unfortunately it sat in the paddock has sat there for the last 10 to 15 years up the coast, and you can see a lot of the deterioration as a result of that. Fresh water is not the friend of timber, and it's done its damage on the poor old girl, but we're hoping we can get it back to its original form and get it back in the water, because I think it deserves it. It's a World War II heritage listed vessel. We don't know how many lives it saved, but it's certainly out there with some of the old boats from the war.
In my endeavours to find a location to put this boat in the interim until we found somewhere that we could do restoration, full restoration on it, I was lucky enough to have some friends called Paula and Tony Nash. They own the Shell service station at Chindra, and they were very, very kind and hospitable and said that they would give us this enclosed area that we could put the boat. It's safe, it's secure, and it's also a little bit in the public eye, so you can have a peek at it when you come by.
I think it's really important to restore this because it's the last remaining example of a double-lapped Huon Pine medical ambulance boat belonging to the Army. This boat just has all of those essences that the apprentices who come and play and work with, use it educationally for sea cadets, having the public come through and seeing how you took care of people that were injured in desperate circumstances.
We're looking for a place that we could take the ship straight to and perform reconstruction or remedial work to it. But we can't do that where it's located at the moment. We need to find a new location where a DA will be approved for taking on extensive works that need to be done to this ship.
Built in Launceston out of the Huon Pine, it's the last remaining one, so it's a unique example of not only a ship and a function, but just the materials, that beautiful wood that actually makes it unique on so many fronts that it really is a complete requirement that it should be preserved as the last standing, last floating image of an Army ambulance ship.